I think only the intellectuals have stayed behind. क्या है ऐसा? ये भी होता है कभी-कभी कि वो किसी तकलीफ में जब दुआदार तकलीफ शुरा लिखने से काम मिले तो देखा नहीं पड़ा था। मुझे कभी की बात बता के मैं बड़ा इंप्रेस हो गया। मुझे मैं भी शनाने वाला हूँ अब तो मेरे को शनाने डाले होंगे। तो डॉक्टर गुलाम से भी ऐसा नहीं हुआ।
इसलिए वो लोग हैं जो
लेकिन but all the right people are here, you know, all the right people are here, mashallah. So the reason I'm here, first of all, thanks to Dr. Ghulam Syed for inviting me and all his faculty members, physiology and the leadership. He is interested in Pakistan society, obviously is applied neuroscience. This society is and I think this society there are people like you who are interested in it. So abhi jo hai hamare professor Nasir Azamad is the executive member of the society. और इस साल तो मेरे ख्याल में कॉन्फ्रेंस में साइंस की हो रही है कराची में, लेकिन अगले साल आप कहाँ करेंगे डॉक्टर? लॉन्ग्स में करेंगे। तो आप लोग समटाइम सितंबर so आप लोग लेकिन इस चीज़ को become a member of Pakistan Society of Basic and Applied Neuroscience और जो है that will be a wonderful platform for networking और जो कॉन्फ्रेंस कराएंगे हमारे प्रोफेसर साहब तो आप देखिएगा कि that will be the best neuroscience conference of Pakistan inshallah. तो मैं जो है I'm giving this lecture is मैंने प्रोफेसर से पूछा कि मैं 4 टॉपिक पे क्या है तो उन्होंने इससे बोलते हैं तुम्हारी ठीक है but you know this is just a part of the lecture that the sort of a teaser I can say कि in PASBAN we want to do a lot of education activities. So there is a neuroscience education webinar series where we have professors from Bristol and other places and you know Harvard say, Johns Hopkins say, different institutions across the world, Pakistan say, we need this neuroscientist to come and speak. Then I also do this Essentials of Neuroscience course. So this is one of the lectures that is taken from that course of Essentials of Neuroscience. And if you are interested, and if Professor Ghulam Syed is interested, I can come here over a weekend. और एक वीकेंड में मैं घोल के ना गिलास में न्यूरोसाइंस पिला दूँगा आप लोगों को। अगर आप लोग तैयार हैं इसीलिए तो मैं मैं जो है आने को यहाँ पे तैयार हूँ। मैं नासिर से को पकड़ लेंगे घोल के हम पिला देंगे ना। एक वीकेंड इज एनफ एसेंशियल्स ऑफ न्यूरोसाइंस। तो यूजुअली डू इट फिजिकली कोविड के ज़माने में वी वेंट टू virtual, but then now the COVID is over, so we should probably go into physical again. So ये जो topic है is just about the memory, but that's just an example of memory हो या Professor Ather ने बात की थी vision and cognition, you know they are very much related, and then how the cognition eventually leads to consciousness. ये सारी चीज़ें we can discuss in that one weekend, and I can guarantee you that when you are done with that, you will have a better understanding of neuroscience. So this is about memory. So memory plays a very important role in cognition and consciousness. Without memory, there is no consciousness. Think about it. It's just a reflex. That's it. So consciousness जो है वो depend करता है cognition पे, and cognition depends on memory. So that's why memory is a very important role. This is just a disclosure. This is the Enam University, no conflict of interest. आप मुझे पैसा तो दीजिए इस काम पे करना है, राइट? और कोई कंपनी मुझे सपोर्ट कर रही है, ठीक है? So everything is kosher. This is a group of people. This was the first Essentials of Neuroscience course that we did, and you know the amount of energy that I saw among students like you was just amazing. The reason I put this picture up over here is because each individual in that group, just like each individual among the 7 billion people across the world, they are different, and they are different because one factor, one major factor. That's because the experiences that we have had, and that experience have to be stored in the memory. Without memory, we're not different. We are just automatons, we are just robots. So that's why the understanding of memory is very important, how it gives you an individual experience. So, Henry Molaison, you अब तो इसका नाम आ गया है 2008 में he passed away. Before that it was called HM. Henry Molaison was a gentleman who had probably an accident when he was 6-7 years old, a bicycle accident. And when he was 27 age, but he could not do anything. He was having so many seizures. Now, by that time, people were aware that hippocampus may play an important role in seizures. So hippocampus, यहाँ पे वैसे, I'm sorry, if I can have a show of hand, how many are students over here? Actually, students. So those are undergrad students, PG students. पीछे में से कितना कुछ show of hands students कितने? अच्छा, so and then we have over there इधर कैसी बात करते हुए ये मसला है के साथ. अच्छा, so all those over there are students, no students. They are students actually. So I will make it a little simple style से कि I mean अगर नासिक जैसे लोगों के साथ यहाँ पर तो they will be very upset कि मैं उनको क्या सिखा रहा हूँ hippocampus कहाँ होता है. लेकिन so hippocampus is उसके बारे में बताऊँगा. So hippocampus people figured out was one of the major source of actually seizures. Actually, it's not hippocampus. There's another nucleus right next to the skull. That's amygdala. That is the most electrogenic part of the brain. So you know, वो कहते हैं कि नीम हकीम खतरा जान. So at that point, this is back in 1953. The surgeon, and he was a very good surgeon in Connecticut, he realized that the seizures are starting from both sides of the brain. So he decided to remove the hippocampus from both sides. Before that, they had done surgeries removing one hippocampus, and it did well in many cases on intractable seizures. So he did both, and that was like a magic. The seizures just stopped completely. But then they also realized he does not have any memory. All he remembered was whatever happened in the past. He could not gather any memory going forward. So he had anterograde amnesia, retrograde memory, anterograde amnesia. This one gentleman, unknowingly, he passed away, 82 years. He passed away after so many years. He was in a nursing home. He has contributed more to understanding of neuroscience than any other individual has, unknowingly. So we have to definitely thank this gentleman. But he was a patient. He had a miserable life otherwise. So if you look at this over here, this is the normal brain, and this is the hippocampus. We're looking at the underside, and this is the part that was removed. And we still remove it, but we remove only one side. We still do it today for seizure surgery, and it worked well. But then he lost his memory. So that was suddenly suggestion that hippocampus is playing an important part in memory. So now when it comes to memory, unfortunately, this slide is not going to show very well over here. But memory, बहुत सारे types and बहुत सारे definitions, and you don't want to get too much burdened by that. तो memory जो है उसको हम अगर simple term में, short term memory, long term memory की बात करें, let's move forward. Let's talk about long term memory. Long term memory में एक है declarative memory और एक है non-declarative memory. Declarative memory ये है कि आपको जो है पता है कि यहाँ का रास्ता किस तरह से कहाँ से कैसे आना है, that is declarative memory. या आपको ये पता है कि जो है आजकल Prime Minister कौन है? It's not a grandfather, right? It's Shahbaz Sharif. So you know those things that you remember, that's memory. And the non-declarative memory is things like how to ride a bike, how to write with a pen. Those are the non-declarative memories that you cannot say with your words, but you can do it. And उसी में आ जाता है learning, जिसको आप क्लासिक कंडीशनिंग कहते हैं, जो गद्दी बजी और कुत्ते का जो है स्लावा और स्टार्ट टू स्पीड, that is classical conditioning. But then there is another thing which is called operant conditioning, where a rat would learn how to press a lever and get some response from it. So there are different kinds of conditioning. But once you go into the semantics and all the details of memory, it's very confusing. Don't bother yourself. Just remember this, that the long-term memory, there are two kinds. One is the declarative memory and one is the non-declarative memory. So this is also called explicit and this is called implicit. Explicit जो हम explain कर सकें, implicit जो हम can't explain. So where does the implicit memory reside in the brain? अगर मुझे बाइसिकल चलानी आ गई एक दफ़ा तो आई डोंट हैव टू रियली लर्न इट अगेन. आई थिंक क्विकली स्विमिंग अगर आ गया आई डोंट लर्न इट अगेन. आई रिमेंबर ऑल दैट. So the implicit memory resides in the center of the brain, which is called basal ganglia. So this is those who have known neuroanatomy very well. I'm sorry about that for saying something very simple like this. Lekin basal ganglia, the circuitry of the motor circuitry of basal ganglia, which includes globus pallidus and putamen and things like that, those nuclei. That's where our motor function is there. Either कोई injury हो जाए तो my hands may not work very well, just like Parkinson's disease for example, या Huntington's chorea में. So this is where most of the memory resides in this circuitry, where information comes from the cortex of the brain, goes to basal ganglia, and then goes to basal ganglia, then goes to thalamus, and then comes back again. And this is where the implicit memory resides. किसी को अंदाजा है कि दिमाग में कितने न्यूरॉन्स होते हैं? Any guess? Anybody? So people say about 100 billion neurons, right? 100 billion neurons. So the number have been revised by this very important scientist. And by the way, some of the best neuroscientists in the world are females. So she is from Brazil, and she has recalculated the number 66 billion. In किसी को अंदाजा है कि this कितने होते हैं? You know, if the day you are born, if you start to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and you keep on counting, and you don't eat or drink anything, you don't do any poo, you don't do any, कुछ भी ना करें, आप count करते रहेंगे, you will not, and आप 70-80 साल को हो जाएंगे, फिर मर जाएंगे, you haven't finished even 10 billion count. So 86 billion neurons is that much. The amount of life that we live, if I'm going to live over 85, let's say, that's about 2.6 billion seconds, that's it. There are 86 billion neurons, and each neuron has a lot of connections, 1000 connections on average. And मजे की बात जो कि अब लोगों को समझ में आ रही है कि जो ब्रेन सामने है यहाँ पर, इससे ज़्यादा न्यूरॉन्स हमारे सेरिबेलम में हैं. That is the most amazing thing that people have discovered recently. So about 80% of our neurons is in that little brain, cerebellum, जो कि हम समझते थे कैसे ही. So 80% neurons exist in that, and so there is a lot of memory that is stored in cerebellum also. अगर आप सुबह पियानो में बजाते हैं, which I do in the morning, and I'm thinking something else, and everything is something, and I just keep on thinking, where is it coming from? The सोचते हैं से it's all coming from here. So now the other memory, the declarative memory, where you are going to actually give a meaning to something, you're going to say something to it, right? That comes from cerebrum, rest of the brain, not the cerebellum, not the basal ganglia. And here's a very cute example. So here is a gentleman who's watching a chair. जब वो chair देख रहा है तो पीछे के कुछ areas brain के highlight हो रहे हैं because they are active, right? Now आपने screen बंद कर दी, and then you ask him to think about chair. And when he thinks about chair, again the same areas are highlighting, which suggests that the memory is stored right where you are perceiving information. जो कि Professor Ather ने बताया था कि this is how you from vision to cognition and from cognition to memory. वहीं पे चीजें स्टोर हो रही हैं. So what happens is that when you have a short-term memory storage, you use hippocampus and things like that, and this is for the explicit memory. Acquisition and storage of explicit memory goes from short-term hippocampus and nucleus structures to rest of the area of the brain. और जो implicit memory है, वो that starts from which you don't know exactly कहाँ से for short-term memory storage maybe in the basal ganglia circuits, and it goes up to cerebellum, basal ganglia, the motor cortex and things like that. Okay, so hippocampus plays an important role in declarative memory. Hippocampus, पानी को थोड़ा hippocampus, right? It has that shape, that's why it's called hippocampus. It connects to a lot of the brain. Now the most important thing that I think in the memory is this part, this nucleus. And those who are not neuroscientists, they will know what this nucleus is. And those who are neuroscientists, they know, and those who are neurosurgeons, they actually remove it also sometimes. This is called amygdala. Amygdala इतना बड़ा है nucleus, about this way, and that plus another small nucleus called nucleus accumbens. तो आपकी जिंदगी कंट्रोल करता है. It basically everything that you feel and you are depressed or you are happy or you are excited or you are fearless or you are पेट में पेशाब हो रहा है, होने वाला, आप कितने डर रहे हैं, it's all controlled by these two things. Now these nuclei, they are interconnected with a lot of part of the brain, and that's why so many connections, and that's why they become very epileptogenic. They can create a lot of seizures if they are not controlled. But then the reason that they are connected is because they play an important role in memory. Memory has a lot of connection. I mean, if I'm going to call this a chair, I need to know that there was something like this. जिसको बैठते हैं और जिसपे जिसके पीछे कुशन होता है, उसकी सीट होती है. All these things have to be stored. And then अगर आपके पेरेंट्स है, मम्मी डैडी थे तो they call it a chair, और आपके पेरेंट्स को भी थे तो they call it a कुर्सी. And then you remember all these things and you put it all together. So it's all association of the information that's coming together, and that's where these parts of the brain are important in making this association, putting it all together in your brain. And that's what happens in Alzheimer's disease. सबसे पहले Alzheimer's disease में क्या होता है? Alzheimer's disease में जो है you start to lose cognition, memory, and then cognition, right? So सबसे पहले जो चीजें दबाव में शुरू होती हैं Alzheimer's disease में, उससे हिप्पोकैम्पल एरिया में. Once it starts to disappear, then the association and people start to lose cognition, and your normal brain becomes an atrophic brain. So that's why Alzheimer's disease progress with that dementia. And the connection of the hippocampus is with the rest of the brain is through what we call as fornix. So here's a patient of mine who developed a tumor at the fornix. Initial resection of the tumor, she was very well, but then it recurred, and then she basically lost. Her she was like an adolescent. She would get up, walk, eat, do everything, but she didn't remember anything. And then eventually the poor soul passed away. So this connection is important, but then that's not the full story. Hippocampus, basal ganglia, it's not the full story. You have to have the brain stem. If my brain stem को काटते मेरा, I'm comatose. So rest of the brain may not do anything, because from the brain stem, from the medulla and from the pons and from the midbrain, there are a lot of nuclei that are connecting to the rest of the brain and controlling their activity. So for example, यहाँ पे लोग सिरुलियस होता है या सिंपल स्लीप वेकफुलनेस सारी चीज़ यहीं से आता है. तो if you disconnect that, you will lose a conscious state in that state, and obviously without consciousness there will be no memory. Now this is the gentleman, Dr. Zafar Bishi. If I'm not wrong, he's from Faisalabad, but I may be wrong. I'm not so sure, but I think he is from Faisalabad, and he is a great neuroscientist in the University of Bristol. He grew up there. So he is now the director of the neuroscience educational webinar series that we do on the platform of PASBAN. So we do this news of neuroscience educational webinar series. Please make sure that you tune in, every other month, and we choose some of them. We have and जो भी parallel lectures हैं, they are all recorded on the YouTube channel. So the good thing is the reason I choose this, because when you see people from your own background talking about science and all the things, it sort of gives you a bit more. There are people over here that my good friend Tawheed, for example, a great scientist, done wonderful work when he was at Ather University. So when you see people doing PhD and then doing great science and great research, you feel encouraged that you can do it also. So it's good to be part of it. So what his work is, and he's doing very neat work. It's called optokinetic mechanism, where he puts a little catheter with laser at the end, and he can stimulate a certain neuron and then see the effect on another part of the brain. And he has found that the prefrontal cortex, जो हमारा ये सबसे बड़ा है सारे एनिमल्स के मुकाबले में, we don't have other things as big as prefrontal cortex. सबसे ज़्यादा वो यही है in evolution. That connects to the rest of the brain, and this is exactly opposite of what Dr. Nasir was saying, where vision going through the anterior ventral and the dorsal pathway gives the meaning cognition. यहाँ पर this gives you the working memory. So कोई आपको कहता है कि बेटा इसको कॉल करना या बेटी वो जो है चीज़ें ये जो है फोन में याद करना, तो what you do is you have a working memory. So some animals, they have a working memory of about 4 seconds. Some primates can get into a few minutes. But we, because of our language, our working memory can extend to hours and days and so on, right? Because we can repeat those things. So the working memory basically requires a lot of planning, a lot of repetition and things like that. But then you do have things like these birds, these blue jays, that have a wonderful working memory. You can give them peanuts and you can give them some worms. वो छुपा देते हैं because they want to eat it later on. जैसे हम लोग एक बार छुपा देते हैं, कहीं पे प्रोफेशनल आ गया तो बाद में खाएंगे. तो they do that, but then they remember कि अगर उन्होंने वहाँ पे वो छुपाया था worm और वहाँ पे 5 दिन हो गए हैं तो worm तो खत्म हो गया, तो बेकार है. They will not go after that. They will not manipulate यहाँ छुपा देंगे, go after that. So that understanding, that cognition and that working memory is an immense aspect of brain activity. The bird brain, look at it. Actually, I tell you something. 1 cubic millimeter of bird brain is more intelligent than 1 cubic millimeter of your brain. I'm sorry about that, but that's a fact. Because there are more neurons, there are more synaptic connections in that 1 millimeter. Their neurons are very small. The thing is that our brain is arranged in sort of, the cortex is arranged in 6 layers. Our cortex has a smaller number of neurons compared to the brain. 6 billion neurons brain में, cortex में 16 billion है. But that's a tremendous advancement. It's like I core 7 से भी आगे निकल गई चीज़. You know, I mean, this is a remarkable achievement. They also have that kind of arrangement, but not to that extent. But they still process. Sorry. So where does the memory actually get stored? I mean, area का बता दिया आपको. The memory gets stored in synapses. That's where it gets stored. And how does it get stored in synapses? You know, everybody knows about this synapses. The action potential comes down over here, and there are synaptic vesicles, and then the sodium potassium का place आ रहा होता है, and then with the depolarization, there's a lot of calcium that comes in. As the calcium comes in, then you know these synaptic vesicles which are at the edges, they release the neurotransmitters, which then binds to the postsynaptic membrane with your receptors, and then the changes take place. You know that. The important thing is that after this, there's a long process. There's a whole complex process that goes on inside the postsynaptic cell, and that is because of these second messengers. And there are 4 very important second messengers. Cyclic AMP and cyclic GMP हो गए, एक जो है NO हो गया, nitrous oxide हो गया, और एक जो है inositol triphosphate kinase pathway. But the most important one is the calcium. Calcium जो है is a very carefully controlled, and that is the most important second messenger in this pathway. This calcium or another second messenger eventually what they do, they 2 different pathways, and I'm going to go into detail, that eventually affect the expression of proteins at the nuclei, and that's where the change occurs. So when you have a memory that's building up, initially what happens, there is synaptic activity, but then at the end of it, it is the genetic expression of these things. So what happens initially when there is, there are other synapses that can fall on it and then can facilitate these synapses, causing a lot of more depolarization with each action potential. Those things can happen. And again, I'm not going into detail. We can discuss it later on in the essential neuroscience course. How does that happen? But what happens is that when this synapse gets facilitated chemically, it will release more chemicals, which will cause more depolarization post-operatively. and the hippocampus plays an important role in this, connecting all those things. Interesting thing is, if you look at the brain of different animals, each animal, even fish, has a hippocampus. And these hippocampus, where they are present, it depends on how the brain works. And I'm writing a book on the evolution of brain, human brain. I'm putting all these pictures, hopefully it gets done in the next 6 months. So it's interesting how the hippocampus and the pallium and the subclavian, they're all related. Book पे शायद अभी book आई नहीं है भाई तो आएंगे तो अच्छा so it's interesting how different fish and amphibians and reptiles, how their brain gets arranged. It's the same structure, they're not too different. Anyway, so moving forward, I'm going to skip that. You guys will not know what this is, but Nasir Razawan knows exactly what it is, because he has probably done that. In epilepsy, sometimes you remove the hippocampus from, so these are 2 different patients. I did not know that. Henry Mulasan, एक patient को दो hippocampus नहीं निकाल रहा है, different patient. So you take out the hippocampus and you see the structure in them. So this is something Turkey has done. Turkey, you have done electrophysiology where you can take a hippocampus, and that's a deep thing about these neurosciences that you can slice out a hippocampus from a rat brain, grow in culture for days and days, and look at the memory by stimulating a part of the hippocampus and looking at the response of the part. And it gave rise to a phenomenon, discovered a phenomenon which was named long-term potentiation. So if you stimulate a part of the hippocampus and you see response over there, and if you stop stimulation, response is still there, that means something has happened. The synapses have strengthened, long-term potentiation. And the long-term potentiation is basically shown over here, how this stimulation causes, stimulation for a period causes enhanced activity in the synapses over here. And what it was discovered that this initial part, which is a sort of short-term memory, that happens because of this NMDA receptor. Again, neuroscience of interest that I was talking about. So one of the most important receptor in your brain is the glutamate receptor. One of the most important glutamate receptor is the NMDA receptor. That is responsible for a lot of things, including memory. And 90% of your neurotransmitters in the brain is actually glutamate. So NMDA receptor is important, and then the AMP receptor. They play with each other, and one receptor causes the other receptor to enhance its effect. So when you have an activity at a synapse, again, these receptors are upregulated, that more are inserted, and you have more receptors in there. When you have more receptors in there, it becomes more active. That's short-term memory. And then, see, there's a depression to the spectrum, LTP phenomena, because it's not only enhancement, but suppress the memory as well. So LTP is an important part because of how these receptors are taken down. Now, this thing was done by Nobel laureate Eric Kandel. So Eric Kandel actually great speaker, and I listened to his lectures before he got Nobel Prize. And वो एक चीज में लग गया वो. I mean, he was going to a psychiatrist. उसने कहा ऐसी psychiatry का होगा उसको. I'm gonna work on memory, and he spent his life working on memory. And वो भी एक just like I just easy this thing, right? You think it's very simple. You think it's very not important, but these things give clues to important things. So the हमें जो cerebral basis और molecular basis of memory हमारे समझ में आई है, is a lot to do because of what Eric Kandel has been able to achieve. And he used a system where I don't know if it works in there or not. Video चलिए please. Okay, let's see if we can. Voice okay. Alright, forget it. Let's do that. So what he did is basically stimulating a part of the gill and seeing the response of the siphon, habituation, sensitization, that's all memory part. And he was able to figure that out, work it further, and he found that it is all because of these receptors, the rhodoplasmin and the cyclic and the response element by the protein scraps. And what are our neurons in the brain? All our neurons in the brain, they have these dendrites. There's an axon in most of the neurons that goes out, and the dendrites where it receives information. These dendrites have called two spines, they're called dendritic spines. So if you look over here carefully, you will see these small spines on these dendrites. Now these are synapses, part of synapses. And what has been discovered that in long-term potentiation, actually these happen because that is happening because of protein synthesis. Because if you put a protein inhibitor in there, it does not happen. So we know that the important feature in memory is associativity, multimodal, and frequency. So if you associate things, दो तीन चीज़ें मिला के associate करेंगे तो आपको memory आप ज़्यादा अच्छे से सकती है. Multimodal, सुनना, देखना, all those senses. And then repeatedly, how many times have I told you to put the words down? That's what we forget. So this is, but the three things that really act up in the memory, these are the three things. One is the story. If you have a story in something, it is all association. Your memory is very good. And then place. Place is very important. We tend to ignore it, but place, ये चीज़ वहाँ पे होनी चाहिए. That is an important aspect. Plus the emotion. You know, the smell of that thing and how my mother took care of me at that moment and what she said and felt, all those things add up. So these are important features that enhance the memory. And it's the basis to one has to be able to figure out that even in grasshoppers and this dumb people, the navigation, which is important for place that takes place in the convention of those two things. So Moses, they got the web prize along with John Keith for the place cells. This is just the last part of the talk, but this is very deep stuff. So in our hippocampus, because of the enhancement, we have these place cells, those grateful. Now look at this. We have another here's a mouse over here. इस माउस में एक इलेक्ट्रोड लगा हुआ है जो कि हिप्पोकैम्पस के एक न्यूरॉन में फंसा हुआ है. It can be, but it's one of the thousands and millions of place cells. ठीक है? और every time that neuron fires, it will make a light and they will record the light on the screen over here. Okay? So it starts like this thing. Okay, this neuron is this mouse is moving around. उसको फीड भी कर रहे हैं. And if it यहाँ पे fire किया तो निशान नहीं. But if you keep on moving around, and every time it moves around, and at specific point that particular place is going to fire. Okay, it looks like a random thing. यहाँ पे fire करेंगे, वहाँ पे fire करेंगे. But then you add up the information over days and days, over hours and hours, and the mouse is moving around. A pattern starts to develop in there, and that is a neat pattern. And it starts to look like there is a hexagonal pattern to that. It's a grid. Look at this. Isn't this neat? Every time I look at it, I say, wow, this is neat stuff, man. Look at this. How they are in a hexagonal pattern. So, not one, but there are millions of neuron cells in your hippocampus that, मैं यहाँ खड़ा हुआ हूँ, there is certain amount of hippocampal place cells that are firing. So I know कि मैं यहाँ पे खड़ा हुआ हूँ. What else tells me that मैं यहाँ खड़ा हूँ? Right? और मैं अगर वहाँ चला जाऊँगा, again, different set of place cells will fire. And that gives me, so this is the place to. And based on that grid, we have our own GPS in our brain. Phone pe hamara GPS but there are cells that will tell me if I'm looking at this way, they're direction cells. If I'm reaching at the end of the edge of a room, there are other cells. So all this adds up and tells me about the place. So that adds up to memory. Okay, switching gear a little bit. So the memory के बारे में ये बात ध्यान रखें कि memory is never accurate. Memory evolved just so that you can do two things. You can get the food, do three things. Get the food so that you can grow, avoid the predators so nobody else eats you, and three, reproduce. That's it. That's the purpose of evolution. That's what evolution has done. And memory only helps you in achieving those results. That's what it does. It builds up a story in your own brain. It is never accurate. It is faulty. And over time, you can add wrong things in it. So accuracy of recall memory is uniformly poor. I was strongly recommend reading this book by Thomas Kita. It's a very unpopular book, very not readable at all. But I think this is the best book that I've ever read in my life. And this is, don't believe everything you think. The 6 basic mistakes that we make. And those are, we prefer stories to statistics. We seek to confirm, not to question our ideas. We rarely appreciate the role of chance and coincidence in shaping events. We sometimes misperceive the world around us. We tend to oversimplify our thinking, and our memories are often inaccurate. So with that, thank you very much. I really appreciate your patience and Dr. Robson for doing this for me. I want to mention is that this is the Pakistan Society of Basic Comparative Science, and Hare and of course Salam for doing this thing. So the society belongs to you. The society belongs to Mr. Bhagavan. The society belongs to what I'm saying. And we want people to come in and just this is the only society of the science in Pakistan. We need to be part of it. And we want to have conferences all over Pakistan. And I'm willing to go around and give lectures and all that thing. But I'm not the main leader in the society. Main leaders are people like Rizwan and Salaf. There's a Pakistan Academy of Neurological Surgery that so work and then there's a Society of Pneumology. So anybody who's interested in brain tumors, we have a Society of Pneumology. They are doing a lot of research on that one, and it will be a pleasure if you interact with that. So thank you very much for listening to me, and if you have any questions, I think more than welcome to.